Yeah, the Fireside a couple times. I saw you open for Fugazi and Lungfish.
Oh yeah. Legendary times.
Yeah, there's another planet. So when we first met back on this other planet, the 90s, I don't know if there used to be this thing called the world, in which things existed without representation. Oh shit, I swore already. Okay, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember the first time we met was at a show in a kitchen in New Jersey. It was Joan of Arc, The Promise Ring, and the Van Pelt. And it was at this guy's house who he was a big weight fluctuator like I am, so we kind of like hit it off over the years. We'd see each other around like once every couple years, be like, you lost weight, you put on weight, you lost weight, you put on weight. Do you remember this show?
Was it at a kind of fancy place, like way out in the suburbs?
Yeah, it was like,
I remember that.
It was in the woods, like a Eyes Wide Shut kind of house.
Yes.
And there was
like ice storm or something.
Yeah.
It did not devolve into a key party. We were too young.
No, but you did jump up and like sing along to a Van Pelt song. Was there a Van Pelt song you did backing vocals on?
Quite possibly, yeah.
So this was like we met because there was like 8 people at this. Well, I don't know. 8's weird. There was probably 12 band members and 4 other people. What was the question in that? Oh, so you must be like at least 30 years old by now. So I'll just start with the question on everyone's mind. What will it take to make you stop?
Ooh. That's a good question. I have no answer to that. I don't know. I don't think I'll know until it happens. What would it take to make me stop?
Well, okay. So it's very interesting that you played new songs. So where are you at in the cycle? There used to be the cycles back on this other planet, the 90s, where you would have to write a record, then record it, wait for it to come out, then tour, then come home, then write the new record, right? That's sort of changed.
Yeah, I mean, I think I still operate on that cycle, for better or for worse. It's just that it's getting longer and used to be you were sometimes on a cycle of like an album a year, you know. I don't think there's room for that, even in the most underground of like, even in the like blackened crust, Norwegian, black metal world or something. I don't think that there's just too many bands.
You're thinking about all the other bands?
Yeah,
you write your own records? You're like, is there space?
I'm not necessarily personally thinking about that, but I probably am thinking about it on some level. Yeah, like there's just so much music out there that I don't think it. I think at a certain point, you hit like a law of diminishing returns if you just keep flooding. But also, that it happens to have timed out with my own aging and a probably like a tighter grip on quality control.
So do songs get harder to write or easier? Because you learn all kinds of little tricks, right? Like I noticed, like the first song you had like a neat little ending where I was like, God damn, Ted Leo, you still got it. But like, so you learn these little tricks, but then the quality control, there's not the sense of discovery, there's the diminishing returns of expectations of like, when you're younger and you're like, I'm gonna put out this record, I wonder what will happen. And then at a certain point, you're like, well, I'll put out some records, I know what will happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate to admit, but I will admit that, once you find yourself midstream in a career that you didn't know was becoming a career, there are actual concerns that you have to start thinking about if you want to try and maintain. All of a sudden you're like, oh, I actually have, wow, wait, there's people here? There are people here to see this show. There are people that are actually buying the record. Well, I don't want that to stop, and I want to keep making music. And the thing about aging and that is not that songwriting gets harder per se. I mean, it's been 6 years since my last record under my own name, but I have over 2 albums worth of songs written in that time. I just haven't, been able to do anything with them until very recently.
Why haven't been able to? Because you've been busy with the both?
Because I've been busy with the both, and also because I didn't have the energy to do them. I didn't feel that a lot of them were complete enough. I felt like I wanted to edit and work on them more, which is what I meant about quality control. And also, frankly, like I don't have the money, you know, and I don't really have like a label with pockets that are, to go into a studio.
Well, you're like one of those guys. You've had like, tell us your history of labels, would you? 'Cause I think it's interesting, because it's sort of like a institutional support or something, that like.
I guess the first few things that I ever put out were cassette demo-y stuff in the 80s that I guess you would have to call self-released, and then our mutual friend Charles Maggio started this label, Gurn Blaston, putting out bands from the kind of ABC No Rio, New York scene in the early 90s, and I started working with him.
And you were sort of an anomaly on the label in terms of...
That's kind of my role on most labels.
Yeah, that's part of my question, I guess. Don't take my question.
Yeah, well, I guess so. I mean, I think Gurn as a label had a pretty wide breadth of music that could, loosely be gathered under the term punk, on everything from like the Rye Coalition, which had their more like AC/DC, side, to the Van Pelt, to Chisel, which was, more mod and melodic. And then Lookout, venerable East Bay punk label Lookout approached me. I was friends with the people who ran it. Why wouldn't I do records with them? We had some wonderful years. And then the bottom fell out of everything, and Lookout collapsed. I was lucky enough to get picked up by venerable Chicago punk rock label Touch and Go. So just sort of ticking the boxes at this point. Lookout, Touch and Go.
You're like a label destroyer.
And then we did one album with Touch and Go. Touch and Go tanked. Next box to tick, Matador. And I don't.
So you're hearing it here first, people. Matador.
It's about to happen. I don't know what's going on. I'm in technically, they have the option to pick up this record that I'm working on right now. We'll see.
Do you feel like you're working on a record now? I mean.
I've been working on it at home. That's the thing. I've been over the course of 6 years, I've been improving my home recording situation and...
Well, because now you are at home sometimes. Right, I mean, you used to have an incredible touring schedule.
That's actually a really big deal, yeah. I actually, it was not, I mean, for over a decade, it wasn't crazy for me to be out for over 200 days a year, I think, And, that's another thing that I feel like, you eventually see some diminishing returns from you both in your ability to keep up with the schedule and in the fact that eventually what started out as like, man, it's so cool that those guys come to, I don't know, Youngstown, Ohio 4 times a year, and then it gets to the point where they're like, oh, I'll see them next time.
So, are you like keeping office hours with the writing? I mean, is it come from a sort of playfulness and you're like discovering, or how does the writing work?
There's no one formula for me. Sometimes, things will sort of happen almost fully formed as I'm walking down the street or something. Yeah.
And songs come into your head fully formed and then you realize it?
Yeah. But I also do practice some office hours work where I sit down and I say it's time to write. And, sometimes it can be really arduous, but sometimes it can actually flow.
And so you mentioned Gurn Blaston and Lookout, both you use the word punk twice, and I'm wondering, are you aware of certain sorts of like lineages that you feel? I mean, is the success or failure of a new song, when you're talking about quality control, is that dependent at all on feeling like a part of any lineage that you have to be loyal to? Like, you know, sort of thinking of like punk rock as a folk tradition of sorts. Versus, like you said, you find yourself midstream in a career and you're like, oh, there's an audience. Like, are you making not concessions, but like,
But you're
are you aware of the audience?
Yeah, you're aware of perceptions, and you want, yes, and you know, I think that, here's what I'm going to say. I think that there may be a healthy balance in thinking about perception, but it probably too often tips to unhealthy, and you probably will make better art, you know, if you don't think about that too much. You know, that said, I also, and this is my problem, this is going back to probably the whole Catholic thing that I mentioned earlier too, but,
Yeah,
you know, like, I also fear sometimes that, like, if I don't, my own vision for something is going to be too monolithic, and, you know.
if you don't consider the lineage, or the audience, or both? You're afraid you'll make like a Yes record?
Who knows? I'll make a record that will, yeah, I don't know, like that, whatever I have, it's an imposter syndrome kind of thing. You know, like whatever I have to offer,
Right.
you know, outside of this lineage or something, might not be worth it.
Right. So does that become, are there images, okay, oh shit, shit's getting heavy. Is there are there images that you remember, right? Because there's something about discovering you can play music and learning to write songs and record songs. That's very different than continuing to write music. So I'm wondering if there were some of the same things that motivated you to start that you're still confronting, or like are there lessons that you learn over and over and over? Are there like limitations that you're like challenging yourself with over and over and over?
I think that I'm currently have largely gotten past a lot of those limitations and the things that we're talking about. But I think that I have suffered from them, and I think my work has suffered from them, if I'm going to be completely honest, in the past sometimes. I think that stepping out of my own thing and doing the work that I've been doing with Aimee Mann for the last couple of years, you know, it was the first time since like the mid-90s that I wasn't doing, that my main thing wasn't my own name, you know, and it was really freeing in a lot of ways.
And is it equally freeing that it's not your name, so you're not totally accountable, or is it also the collaborative process?
Both. You know, and in the way that it's not your name, I wouldn't say so that it's that you're not accountable, but it's so that you know, there's just no expectation there. You know, you're really free to explore a little bit more than I think I was letting myself for a few years.
Well, yes. So this is super weird, right? Because there's Ted Leo, the man, who I'm currently addressing.
Some would call me a man.
Yeah, like we established, 30 years old, you're a man now.
I shaved yesterday. It's a big deal.
There's Ted Leo, the man, who I'm addressing, who also, like, all these people come to see and, like, have an idea of. And then there's Ted Leo, the artist, right? And like, how much, from the perspective of a third Ted Leo, I guess I'm asking this too. Is it liberating? Because you're like, because personally, I've like released a lot of records that have like my own name on the record, but I've yet to release like a proper solo album of songs, because I feel like, oh, it's like too much, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't want to be accountable in that way. So is there...
There's not a lot of, there has been not a lot of space between the first two that you mentioned, the man and the artist, you know, and I mean, that's, going back to what you were talking about with trying to respect some lineage or whatever, I mean, you know, that's one of the things that's wonderful about punk rock. It's also one of the things that leaves you with, like, punk damage later on in life, when you
I'm so happy to have this phrase introduced into my life, punk damage.
Oh, yeah.
It's like we do all need this support group of like, wait, it's okay if I want to like be comfortable occasionally.
Yes.
I have a body, it's fundamental biases for comfort. Why would people expect
Yeah.
that I shouldn't want to be comfortable occasionally?
Right. That's exactly.